Hello, everyone. I'm Traci Arieli, end of life doula and founder of Comforting Closure. Welcome to another episode. For more than 20 years, every time my husband leaves town, even if it's just for a couple of days, I write him a little love note in a silly card. Sometimes it's for a work trip, sometimes it's a visit to family. He gets a card every time. Over the years, those cards have added up. We have boxes of them now. They're funny, they're simple, they say many of the same things over and over. I love you, I miss you, come home. The cats will be upset with you for leaving them. Those cards were never meant to be legacy work. They simply became a record of a moment in our lives. There's something we go back to and share with each other. We laugh at the cards. Today's conversation is about that idea that legacy isn't something we leave behind when we die. It's a relationship we build while we're alive and one that can continue after death. My guest today is Molly Pearson. She is the founder of Birthdays from Beyond, a project focused on helping people leave messages of love and connection for the future. So grab a warm drink, find a comfortable seat, and join us for the conversation. Molly, welcome and thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I want to start with you. Can you tell us about your journey to this work?
Sure. My journey to this work came from a pretty sad start, actually. Well, I guess really the story before the story was sort of a much more happy start. But when I was a kid, my parents were always really kind of insistent on me writing birthday cards and thank you cards for people. So I got really in the habit of writing cards, much like you do with your husband. And so cards has always been a big part of our family. And my parents write me the best birthday cards ever. They're always reflecting on what I'm up to and what they appreciate about me and what they admire about me. They're so good at writing birthday cards. And so the little, I guess, U-turn, the sort of sad part is a couple of years ago when my dad got his cancer diagnosis, I was like, holy moly, my dad is not going to be around forever. And what am I going to do with that big sad day and that big sad future without him? And I really didn't know what to do for some time until my birthday approached. And on my birthday, I gave my dad a big fat stack of empty birthday cards. And I said, Dad, I want you to fill out all of these birthday cards and I am going to keep them. And I am going to open one a year every year after you die.
Wow.
And he cried and was like, wow, you really want to hear from me for that long, huh?
Ah.
And I said, yeah, I sure do, because you get a new idea every time you look left, basically. So I want so much for my life to be infused with your wisdom and your comedy and, you know, what you're thinking about on the day to day for not just the rest of your life, but the rest of my life. And he took the cards and he said, okay, you got it, kiddo. I'm going to write these. And it must have been maybe 3 months later that he kind of just like, we were on a family trip together and he just wandered down the hallway and he was like, hey, I was writing one of your cards and I thought, you know, maybe other people would want to do something like this. And if you did something with it, you could call it Birthdays from Beyond.
Amazing.
So once he said that, it's like I got the full download of everything, really. And it became much bigger than me and him. And it became much bigger than that stack of empty birthday cards. And I had the whole vision for what I wanted it to be, thanks to his name drop right there.
Now, how did the experience of giving your father this stack of cards, and I think you gave your mother one later on, how did that change the way that you think about relationships after a person passes away?
Well, I think that something that is so meaningful about relationships is the ways in which they develop over time, and the ways that we get to know the version of a person over time, because we're always changing, whether it's a little bit or a lot of bit, we're always going through different iterations of ourselves. And once somebody dies, all of those future iterations are, they become a complete and total mystery to us. And my hope was in offering up these cards to both my folks to write things down, is that they would maybe share things that I didn't know about them, or they would share reflections that I hadn't heard, or they would share pieces of themselves, so that I could still evolve my relationship with them or my understanding of them even after they're gone. And it doesn't have to, come to, excuse the dumb joke, but to a dead end.
Dad joke.
When they pass. No. Yeah.
That's great. Now, I know that many people think legacy is about being remembered, and I love that you frame it more as staying connected, which I absolutely love. Can you talk about that difference a little bit?
Sure. I think that when you are remembering someone, so all of it is really based on past experience, right? I'm remembering this thing we did together. I'm remembering this thing that they said to me. And I think that what happens when you get something new via a card, or it could be a video that you record for someone to watch posthumously, whatever it is. But when there's a slightly new piece of information, or a new joke, or a new affirmation, that it's almost like having a version of the connection with that person that you had when they're around. And so it's not exclusively just looking in the rearview mirror. It's getting to have maybe just a teeny tiny slice of something new. And I think that that's the thing that really kind of drives me to push this work, is the ability to have something just slightly new, so that it's not only the recycled memories, but it's just one new thought, or one new story, or one new fact about their childhood or something, so that you're not cycling through all of the same previous memories, but like, how fun would it be to have just some new memory? It's like, how many people, when they're going through a loved one's house after they pass, and then they see a journal or something, and they're like, wow, I had no idea that, my mom went through all of this. And so it's kind of like recreating that, but not happening on it by accident, but doing it more intentionally.
It's amazing. Now, I have two questions, follow-up questions. Now, when your dad got sick and you started grieving, how did creating these cards help with your anticipatory grief?
Yeah, I had so much anticipatory grief, and I thought, man, I have got to capture everything about my dad. I have to do everything. I have to record everything. I have to save every voice note. I have to save every email, even if it's just a work email kind of a thing. And that's, for me, was a little bit nonsense. There is no judgment on anybody who does any of those things. But for me to save every single email my dad sends, I would need a new email address.
Yeah.
Like, so having a system and a process, and something that is reliable, and something that I can count on, and something that I know will exist in a very contained physical box, that I can count on being there in the future, and that I know that I am doing something to proactively capture some of the stories about his life, made me feel way, way better, rather than the sort of 11th hour scramble of like, oh, I've got to sit you down in front of a videographer to capture your life story, when he's just not really going to do that, And I don't know that I'm going to sit down and watch a 4-hour movie about him. I probably would, but in like very teeny tiny chunks of time.
Yeah.
And so I think that a birthday card is a really nice small slice of kind of bite-sized connection, bite-sized, a note from someone, and it's on your birthday. Like, who doesn't love to open a birthday card,
I have not met anyone who doesn't like birthday cards. Not to date. That and cake, you can't go wrong.
Right.
The second follow-up question is, how has your relationship changed?
Yeah, it's a good question. My dad and I have always been incredibly open with each other. And before I even started this project, I said to him, Dad, I want to have the conversation that you and I would have on your deathbed. Like, are you up for that?
Wow.
And he said, I sure am.
Wow. Your dad is pretty incredible to be. I know I love my dad, but he's still, up until when he was in his, in his 80s, he was like, I'm going to live, technology is there. I'm going to live forever. Technology is going to do it. Like he won't talk about death at all. He doesn't even have an advance directive. Like he is in denial. And I hope my parents don't listen to this episode. But, so your dad seems like one cool guy.
He's a cool cookie, and I think it started really when I didn't particularly agree with a decision that he was making around his treatment.
Wow.
And instead of telling him how much I disagreed and why, I said, can you tell me why you're making this decision? And what came out was, I have lived such an amazing life. And if this is the decision that kills me, I'm okay with that because I haven't left much behind. I've had so much connection. I've had so much love. I have had an impact on people. And so getting to hear his perspective on his own life and death was something that really opened another door for us, and then opened more conversation about ways that he has really impacted me, and from him, ways that he's really been impacted by me. And so that conversation was just it was great. And we've actually had several since then. And, there's not just one like goodbye conversation.
Right.
And we've continued to be quite open with each other about it. And so I think, I don't know that doing these cards has changed my relationship with my dad, but I think that they are, these cards were birthed because of that relationship that I had with my dad.
Now, what surprised you most about how emotional this process was, not just for you, but for your parents as they wrote the cards?
Yeah, there were a couple of surprises. Number one, it was surprising that they were surprised that I wanted to hear from them for so many years.
Now, are you an only child, or do brothers and sisters, do siblings?
My dad has 2 daughters from his first marriage.
Okay.
And I'm the only, and I grew up an only with my mom and dad.
Okay.
And so they were really touched. I was surprised that the ask made them cry. I am also surprised that when they sit down to write me a birthday card now, they kind of have no problem doing it. But when you're staring at a stack of, I gave them like 75. So
you're planning to live a very long life. Remember, you're probably going to live well over 100. I think they're determining about 120 now. So that's a lot of cards. You might have to up that stack a bit.
I know they're going to be like, oh, more, please give me a break. But I think when you're staring at 75 empty cards, you go, what am I going to say? Like, what can I say that's different? But I think that when I told them to think of it sort of just like their own personal journal, that it doesn't have to be a happy birthday, hope you ate great cake, remember to buckle your seatbelt. Like, it's, I just expanded it. And so that has been an interesting surprise, is the way that it has expanded to, hey, tell some stories about your childhood, tell some stories about your own parents, tell some stories about things that were important to you in your life that you accomplished, things that you regret, things about your friends that I also know. So I'm surprised that it has expanded. And then I don't know if this shouldn't come as a surprise, but it did, is that it can be fairly emotional to sit down and like really come to grips with these cards that you're writing.
Yeah.
So it started as a challenge to them, until I gave them a big old list of prompts.
Yes.
And I said, why don't you just answer these questions?
Yes. Talk a little bit about prompts, because you told me before when we met and we talked that you saw that it could be really overwhelming, just like you said. How did you come up with those prompts? What are some of those prompts like?
Yeah. So I love questions. I love questions so much. I am known in my friend group for asking maybe slightly too personal and too probing questions of people too soon. And
curiosity is never a bad thing. I don't care what they say about the cat. Curiosity is a good thing.
I'm so with you. I'm so with you. And it's interesting being on the interviewee side, being asked all the questions, because I typically am like a really maybe intense question asker. And so I have a notes doc on my phone of all kinds of good questions that I've heard out in the wild that I've just collected over the years. And then just I sort of followed my own curiosity. And so when I gave my folks these list of prompts, I split it up into two different categories. One is a whole category that's reflecting on your own life and the life that you've lived. And then the other category is reflecting on your child or whoever it is that you're writing this for. It could be a grandchild, could be a child, could be a spouse, could be, it's not limited to parent-child, but to reflect on the life of the loved one that you're leaving these with. And so I thought, what are the questions that if I didn't have the parents that I have and I couldn't ask them every single thing that I wanted to ask them, what would I want to know? And so there's, 20 or 30 questions about that encourage my folks to reflect on the life that they've lived. And then other questions to reflect on either their relationship with me or ways in which I've grown or, whatnot. And so having that list of prompts has made it much, much easier for them to take pen to paper.
I think that people don't realize, because my parents are older now, and people don't realize how important these memories are. I look at my grandparents who have passed on long ago, and I wish I knew more about them, especially the ones that I didn't know well because they died when I was a preteen. And so I didn't know them well. I wish I would know more about their life, because it's part of who I am too. That's part of my, my ancestry and my grandparents who I did know well. I still want to know more about them. So when I talk to my parents about, I want to do legacy video, or I want them to write down, you know, you know, write down more about themselves, or I want to hear their stories. They're always surprised that why do you want to, they're surprised I want to know about them. And it's important. This is who I am also.
Yeah. Yeah. You come from them and their experiences and their memories, and, anything that they don't write down, that dies with them.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for our history, for our legacy, for our culture, for answering questions about ourselves, to have some idea of the lives that were lived by our parents and our grandparents.
Yeah, definitely. Now, when we spoke, you said that you saw people use these cards in ways that you didn't expect. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So I originally designed this to be parent-child because this is how I did it with my folks. And I was like, that's it. Of course, that's the only thing, we're going to do. And I've heard of a handful of different things. One, a friend of mine took this to his uncle who was in hospice. And when you're sitting around with a family member in hospice, there's not a ton to do. You are in the same room all the time and in the same environment. And maybe you watch a show together, maybe you play cards, but I think for a lot of folks, it's like, how was your day? Well, same old, And so he bought these and took them to his uncle's bedside, and they wrote cards to his wife who would be surviving him. And the very first gal who ever helped me with designing these and bringing these into the physical world, her cousin miscarried twins. And so she writes cards now to her angel babies every year on their birthday.
That's beautiful.
And it's a way for her to stay connected to that memory and to the energy of her babies. And in a million years, I would have never occurred to me to use it in this way, Yeah, there's a dad in Seattle who is doing this for his daughters. And in addition to the cards, he's also clipping out like newspaper sort of historical data about his parents, his parents' wedding announcement, his own wedding announcement with his wife. He's putting photos in the cards. And so that's sort of turning into its own legacy book by way of birthday card. Yeah.
What do the cards look like? Because you were talking about the design of the cards. So what do they look like? Or
so they all say happy birthday in one way or another on them. And there's a little snapshot of them on the website. But I worked with the designer to do sort of a cross section of some floral and a little animal and some balloons. I tried not to make it cheesy. I tried not to make it too gender specific. There's 5 different designs for 15 different cards. They do all say happy birthday, but I will tell you that one of the other use cases that I have heard of is a mom who is doing this for her grandkids, but she is writing on the front of each card, open this on your 16th birthday.
Yeah.
And open this, when you graduate high school. Open this when you get your driver's license. Open this on a day that you're sad.
I can tell you from my experience with my husband and the cards that we give each other, like every single one, it doesn't matter if it says happy anniversary or happy birthday or whatever it says, because you usually cross it out and put I miss you or whatever. It's just a picture that counts. If it is a cat or another animal with something obnoxious like a rainbow coming out of its mouth, it is a thumbs up. So, it doesn't matter if it says happy birthday. That's not the important part.
Right. Yeah. It's you just cross it out
Yeah.
and have it be whatever kind of card you want it to be. And
Yeah.
we're pretty famous in my family for doing that too, is just crossing out the whatever.
Exactly. So how long has Birthdays from Beyond been alive and around now?
This is pretty fledgling. So I launched it last summer. So what would that be, about 7 or 8 months
Well,
ago? Uh,
congratulations. That's wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, it's new, and then I had to hit pause on it because I was in a not so delightful horseback riding accident
Oh,
and
I'm
ended
sorry.
up breaking my pelvis and my tailbone
Oh,
and
dear
got a
goodness. Well, I'm
concussion,
glad you're
and so
better.
every I'm so glad I'm better. Thank you. So things hit pause. So I would say it's been a bit of a like a stutter start since last summer.
And so people will get these cards and a box, and then they could present, and each card, it's almost like an index file, an index box of cards.
It is, yeah. So if you're a parent and you're ordering this, you get the box, you untie the ribbon, and then there's a little card that says, "Open me first." And then you get to open the very first card. And inside, it essentially tells you what to do, which is, hey, fill out these cards, take this instruction sheet out, and put all of your finished cards back in this box, and then give it to I'm going to say your child, your son or daughter, um, when you're done with it, for them to save and open when they're ready. And so you present it in this very self-contained time capsule. You don't have to worry about losing bits and pieces of things or a USB drive or anything like that. And then if you're ordering it for your parents to write cards, you still get the box, you open it up, you open up the Open Me card, and essentially, you have more or less the same instructions, which is give this box to your parents, tell them you would love for them to fill out these birthday cards, and then once they're done, give it back to you for you to hang on to and open when you're ready. So it's all of the instructions are there, all of the prompts are there,
Nice.
all of the cards are there. It sits on this like black and gold sort of spring fill confetti type of thing. And
Nice.
it's all just like, you could neatly keep it in your closet and hang on to it for as long as you need.
That's wonderful. That sounds really, really nice. Now, when someone opens one of these cards years later, think of yourself also. What are you hoping that they feel?
Uh, I'm hoping that they are feeling so much love from their parent, love for their parent, a, some type of connection, especially some type of new connection, something that's slightly, refreshed, that like breathes a little bit of life into that relationship. And I'm I'm all for ugly crying also. So
Me too. Well, I think one of the things about grieving, one of the things that we have to learn as a society that doesn't grieve well and doesn't do death well, is part of the healing. And you'll always grieve. That grief will never go away. It will change. But I think the part of the healing is forming that relationship, that new relationship with your loved one. I think we really misunderstand that that's important. That it's not just boom and ending. You still have a relationship with that person, that loved one.
yeah, I'm sure that you have learned many different lessons from your grief, and probably none more important than any other one. But I'm curious, the today version of you, how would you answer, what is something that you have learned from your grief?
I've learned to feel it a lot more than I ever have, and to be okay. And that continuation of that relationship. I I talk to those I've lost. I have full on communication with them when I meditate. I'm very spiritual, and some people would call it journeying. You have a journey. I journey and I talk with them. I'm not. This is my spiritual. I own it. This is my spirit. So I'm not. I think I'm less afraid, and I also, from my grieving and from seeing other people grieve, I think that things become much more real. And what I mean is, I don't put up with, uh, I don't put up with sometimes the bullshit that I call them bullshit conversations, because some things aren't going to be important. And so I really focus on, like, if I think this is, a year from now, this isn't going to be important, I'm not going to waste my time. So my values really have changed, and what I'm willing to put up with has changed. And also my relationships with those that are living have really changed also. I value people so much more than I did, and the time and the conversations. I feel so fortunate to have the friends that I do, and I feel like it's a privilege.
Yeah, it sounds to me like your grief has brought you into living a life more accordance with your values.
Oh, totally. And doing this work also. I came from tech. So it's a very different, the conversations are a bit different.
Mm-hmm. But wow, what a gift,
Yeah.
To come to it, and to come to it at this stage in your life,
Yeah.
and not to come to it at 85.
Yeah. That realization that death comes a lot sooner than you think it's going to come makes every day really, really precious and important.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So, as a friend once said to me, congratulations on being where you are.
Yes. Yes. Now it's interesting, kind of in the same vein. So many people think, it's too early to think about that, or why would I even consider writing cards like this? It's too early to think about my legacy, or to think. What would you say to them?
Oh my God, I would say now is the perfect time to do it, because you're not paralyzed by your own mortality.
Mm-hmm.
You're not staring death in the face, so you have a degree of distance from it that allows you to do this in a way that is maybe slightly less intense than for someone who is in hospice, or for someone who has dementia, or someone who has a terminal illness. Take all of your super healthy vibrancy and probably decent handwriting at this age.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. People aren't writing as much as they used to.
That's fair. That's fair.
That,
But just, like, take the vibrancy that you have in your life now. Now is the perfect time to capture it, because also, how many of us want to remember our loved ones when they're full of life?
yeah.
Right? When they have things that they're pursuing, or they have things that give them energy, and maybe the memories are slightly less fun when we visit grandma in the nursing home, and it is the same every single time. And so bring everything that you're doing now. You don't have to feel ready to think about your death, but like you just said, it comes sooner than you think. And so, wow, are you going to be bummed if, not to be morbid, but like, you get hit by a car and you didn't do this? And it's really, honestly, like, the heart of it is, in a way, it's not about you. It is about your son, your daughter, your child, your loved one. And so get yourself out of it, take yourself out of the equation, and kind of put that on hold if you can, and think about how meaningful it's going to be to somebody who loves you so much to get this beautiful surprise gift. from you.
And I think also putting yourself in the mindset that you aren't going to be here forever to make that conversation more real. I think as if I was in my 20s, and some of it, a lot of it is experience also, but I think that when I was in my 20s, even reflecting upon my death or writing something like a card, I think it would have been pretty surface. Not saying that it's unimportant. There's a difference between being surface and unimportant. But I think that even if you're in your 20s and you decide to do something like this, or in your 30s, which is great, that really get into yourself, like really put, make it real, make it, get raw. It's don't worry about sounding profound. No one sounds profound. Right. Trust me. Trust me, no one does.
That's part of the reason that I included as many cards as I did, which is some of them are going to be simple.
Yeah.
Some of them are going to be funny. Some of them are going to be what you will feel like is a total home run. Amazing. Yep. But you've got enough to quote unquote mess it up that like there's going to be enough of these cards that someone gets to open that it's okay if you tell a story that, again, doesn't sound incredibly profound.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Molly, I would like to thank you so much for being on the show today. And I'm really grateful for your time and your honesty and really putting this out into the world. It is so important. And I'm sure that when you created this box, it's probably more important than you even imagine. It's really, I appreciate it. For those listening who want to learn more about Birthdays from Beyond or get in touch with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, there's a couple of ways. So first, if you go to the website, birthdaysfrombeyond.com, I've got a thing on there that you can get totally for free. That is basically 3 steps to writing a card that maybe is profound or a card that's going to be deeply felt and remembered. There's sort of this 3-step process that I reverse engineered from why my parents' cards are so great. So if you're the kind of person who's like, what do I say? How do I say it? How do I not sound dumb? This is easy, very easy 3-step process to write a total like slam dunk of a card to anyone for any reason. So that's on the website, birthdaysfrombeyond.com, and same for Instagram. We're at birthdaysfrombeyond.com. Email me. I would love to hear from you for any reason about anything at all. You can write me at hello@birthdaysfrombeyond.com. I will write you back. I read every email that I get, and
You're great.
saying, so yeah, I would, I'd be so happy to hear from you if you happen to pop into my inbox.
Thank you.
So
listeners, conversations like this remind us that relationships don't end when someone dies. They just change. Writing things down, sharing stories, offering guidance, or simply naming what we love allows those relationships to continue in a different form. When we leave words behind, we're giving people access to our voice, our values, and our lived experience long after we're gone. Thank you for joining us. If you've any questions, please comment below or reach out to me directly. And if you found this conversation to be helpful, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. This is Traci Arieli from Comforting Closure, wishing you peace and comfort in your journey. Until next time, take care.